The smell hit me first. Expensive cologne mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. Not my cologne. Not anything that belonged in my house. I stood in the doorway of my own home, suitcase in hand, staring at a pair of Italian leather shoes that definitely weren't mine sitting by the front door. Size 12 probably cost more than my monthly car payment. The kind of shoes that screamed money and arrogance in equal measure. My name is Paul Granger, and I'm a civil engineer. I build things that last. Bridges, foundations, structures that can weather any storm. I thought my marriage was like that too. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things. The business trip to Portland had been canceled at the last minute. Client emergency, they said. So here I was, home 3 days early from what should have been a week-long project review. Surprise, honey, I'm home. Except Elise's car wasn't in the driveway. I set my suitcase down carefully, my engineer's mind already cataloging the evidence. The shoes, the cologne hanging in the air like guilt made tangible. The half-empty wine bottle on the kitchen counter. Our good wine. The stuff we saved for special occasions. Apparently, adultery qualified as special. The house felt different. Violated. 22 years of marriage, and I could sense when something was off in my own home. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, but the air itself seemed charged with secrets. I walked through the living room, noting details. 2 wine glasses in the sink, both with lipstick stains, but different shades. Elise's usual coral pink and something darker, more dramatic. A throw pillow on the floor. The couch cushions slightly askew. My hands weren't shaking yet, but they would be soon. The sound came from upstairs. Muffled voices. A woman's laugh I recognized. And something else. Something that made my stomach clench and my vision narrow to a tunnel of pure crystalline rage. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. The old wooden steps creaked under my weight, a sound I'd heard thousands of times before. But tonight, they sounded like a countdown. At the top of the stairs, I could hear them clearly now. Elise's voice, breathless and excited. A man's voice, deep and accented, Russian maybe. They weren't being quiet. They weren't being careful. They thought they had 3 more days. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. What I saw would have been funny if it weren't happening to me. Victor, I'd learn his name later, was hanging upside down from our bedroom closet rod, his expensive clothes scattered across the floor like confetti at a very twisted party. Someone had written, "I hope he was worth it," across his bare chest in Elise's favorite lipstick. Elise sat on the edge of our bed, wrapped in my bathrobe, staring at her handiwork with what looked like artistic satisfaction. Jesus Christ, Elise. She spun around, and for a moment her face went completely white. Then something else flickered across her features, not shame, not guilt, but annoyance, like I was the one interrupting something important. "Paul, you're early." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no scrambling for clothes or excuses. Just a flat statement of fact, delivered with the same tone she used to comment on the weather. Victor groaned and tried to right himself, but the closet rod held firm. I'd installed that rod myself, used heavy-duty brackets rated for twice the normal load. I build things that last. "Get him down," I said quietly. "Paul, I can explain." "Get him down." She moved to untie the silk scarves binding his ankles to the rod. Her movements were careful, practiced. This wasn't their first time playing games in my bedroom. Victor dropped to the floor with all the grace of a sack of cement. He was older than I'd expected, maybe early 40s, with graying temples and the kind of tan that came from expensive vacations. The lipstick message across his chest was already smearing. "You must be the husband," he said, his accent thick but his English perfect. "I am Victor Resnick." He extended his hand like we were meeting at a cocktail party. I looked at his outstretched hand, then at my wife, then back at him. "Get out of my house." "Paul, please, let's talk about this like adults," Elise started. "Adults?" I laughed, and it came out harsh and bitter. Adults don't hang their lovers from closet rods like Christmas ornaments. Adults don't screw around in their husband's bed while he's working to pay for the sheets. Victor was gathering his clothes, moving with surprising dignity for a man who'd just been hanging upside down in another man's bedroom. "Perhaps we should discuss this situation rationally." "Rationally?" I stepped closer, and he actually took a step back. "You want to discuss rationality? Let's start with the rational decision to get out of my house before I do something we'll all regret. Is that a threat? Victor's voice carried a dangerous edge now. It's a promise. For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then Victor smiled, a cold, calculating expression that didn't reach his eyes. I think there has been a misunderstanding. Elise and we have been discussing business, real estate business. In my bedroom, undressed, tied up with silk scarves. It was a very intensive negotiation. The sheer audacity of it hit me like a physical blow. Here was a man caught in the most compromising possible position, and he was still trying to spin it as a business meeting. I started laughing, really laughing, the kind of deep belly laugh that comes when the universe reveals just how absurd everything really is. Business meeting, I gasped between laughs. That's good. That's really good. Elise was watching me with growing alarm. Paul, are you okay? Am I okay? I wiped tears from my eyes. My wife is having business meetings with strange men in our bedroom, and you're asking if I'm okay? I walked to the window and looked out at the driveway. Victor's car, a black BMW with dealer plates, sat next to my 10-year-old Honda like a predator sizing up prey. Nice car, I said conversationally. Thank you, Victor replied cautiously. Shame about the fire. What fire? I pointed out the window. Victor and Elise crowded behind me to look. The BMW was engulfed in flames. Oh my God, Elise screamed. Victor cursed in what I assumed was Russian and ran for the window, still clutching his clothes. How did, he started. Funny thing about expensive cars, I said, still staring out at the blaze. All those electronics, all that wiring. Sometimes things just spontaneously combust, especially when someone might have tampered with the electrical system. Victor spun to face me. You son of a witch. That's my mother you're talking about. She raised me to respect the sanctity of marriage. He lunged at me, but unclothed men carrying armfuls of designer clothes don't have much leverage. I sidestepped easily, and he crashed into the dresser, sending Elise's jewelry box flying. I'd get dressed if I were you, I suggested. Fire department will be here soon, and I don't think you want to explain why you're unclothed in another man's bedroom when they arrive. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Victor dressed faster than I would have thought possible, cursing under his breath in multiple languages. Elise just stood there, still wrapped in my bathrobe, watching her lover's car burn like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. This isn't over, Victor said as he headed for the door. You're right, I replied. It's just getting started. The fire department took 2 hours to fully extinguish Victor's BMW. By the time they left, it was after midnight, and my front yard looked like a crime scene. Which, in a way, I supposed it was. I spent the night in my workshop, a converted garage where I kept my tools and worked on weekend projects. It smelled like sawdust and motor oil, honest smells that didn't lie to you or cheat on you or hang strange men from bedroom fixtures. Elise had disappeared sometime during the fire department's visit, probably went to stay with her sister or one of her real estate friends. The kind of people who thought marriage was just another contract to be negotiated and renegotiated as circumstances changed. I made coffee on the hot plate I kept in the workshop and sat on my workbench watching the sun come up over the lake. Our house, my house now, I supposed, sat on 3 acres of lakefront property about 20 minutes outside of town. I'd bought it 15 years ago, back when Elise still pretended to love me, and I still believed that building a perfect life was just a matter of having the right blueprints. The coffee was terrible, but it was hot and caffeinated, which was all I needed. I had work to do. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Anna. Heard about the excitement last night. You okay? Small towns. News traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at light speed. I texted back, define okay. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Okay, but Paul, whatever you're planning, don't do anything stupid. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then typed, define stupid. She didn't respond. At 8 o'clock, I drove into town for breakfast. The Blueberry Hill Diner was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, usually before they knew it themselves. If I wanted information about Victor Resnick, this was the place to start. I took a booth in the corner and ordered coffee and eggs. The waitress, a woman named Dolores, who'd been serving coffee at the Blueberry Hill since the Carter administration, poured my coffee, and gave me the kind of look that said she knew exactly why I was there. Heard you had some excitement last night, she said. Car fire. These modern vehicles, all those electronics. Dangerous. Uh-huh. She didn't believe me for a second, but she didn't press. That Russian fellow, he was in here yesterday, asking questions about you. I looked up from my coffee. What kind of questions? Your work, your schedule, how long you'd been married, real interested in your wife's business, too. What did you tell him? Nothing he couldn't find out from the phone book. But he paid cash for his meal and left a $50 tip on a $12 check. That's the kind of money that makes people remember things. I nodded and sipped my coffee. Victor wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was planning something. The question was what? Dolores, what do you know about import-export businesses around here? She snorted. Import-export. That's what they all say. Usually means they import trouble and export headaches. Anyone in particular? There's been talk, new money in town, people buying property with cash, no questions asked. Your wife's been handling some of those sales, hasn't she? I nodded. Elise specialized in high-end properties, the kind that attracted buyers who valued privacy over paperwork. Word is, some of these cash buyers aren't too particular about where their money comes from, if you know what I mean. I knew exactly what she meant. The bell above the diner door chimed, and I looked up to see Detective Ray Fisher walking in. Fisher was old-school Boston PD, retired to our little town 5 years ago to fish and drink beer and pretend he didn't miss the excitement of the big city. He was also the closest thing we had to a real investigator. He spotted me and walked over, sliding into the booth across from me without invitation. Paul, heard you had some trouble last night. Car fire, happens all the time. Uh-huh. Especially to cars belonging to men who've been sleeping with other men's wives. Dolores appeared with another coffee cup and filled it without being asked. Fisher nodded his thanks. Ray, I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you have no idea how a BMW's electrical system could spontaneously combust in your driveway. These foreign cars, they're not built for Maine weather, Fisher smiled. The kind of smile that said he'd heard every lie in the book and invented a few of his own. Paul, I like you. You're a straight talker, you pay your taxes, you don't cause trouble. But whatever's going on here, it's bigger than a cheating wife and a burned car. What do you mean? Victor Resnick. You know anything about him? Just met him last night. Briefly. He's been on our radar for a while. Nothing we can prove, but let's just say his import-export business imports more than furniture and exports more than lobster. I leaned forward. Are you telling me my wife is involved with a criminal? I'm telling you to be careful. Men like Resnick don't just walk away when things get complicated. They tend to double down. Fisher finished his coffee and stood up. Paul, if you need help, real help, you call me. Don't try to handle this alone. After he left, I sat in the booth for another hour thinking. Elise wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved with someone dangerous, someone who'd been asking questions about my schedule and my business. The pieces were starting to form a picture, and I didn't like what I was seeing. I paid for my breakfast and drove home. Elise's car was in the driveway. She was sitting at the kitchen table, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking like she'd slept in her car. Which, knowing Elise, she probably had. She'd never been the type to impose on friends when she could suffer dramatically instead. We need to talk, she said. I'm listening. I want a divorce. I sat down across from her. After 22 years of marriage, this was how it ended. Not with tears or apologies or even a fight. Just a flat statement delivered like a business proposal. Okay, I said. She blinked. Okay, you want a divorce? We'll get a divorce. I'll call my lawyer this afternoon. Paul, I didn't expect you to just agree. What did you expect? That I'd beg you to stay? That I'd pretend last night didn't happen? I expected you to fight for us. There is no us, Elise. There hasn't been for a long time. I just didn't want to see it. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was cold. It doesn't have to be ugly, she said. We can be civilized about this. I looked down at her hand on mine. 22 years ago, I'd slipped a ring on that finger and promised to love and honor and cherish her until lost do us part. I'd meant every word. What do you want? I asked. The house, my car, half of everything else. And Victor? Victor is complicated. I'll bet he is. Paul, there are things about Victor that you don't understand. Things that could be dangerous if they came out. I pulled my hand away from hers. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to protect you. From what? From getting involved in something you can't handle. I stood up and walked to the window. The burned-out shell of Victor's BMW had been towed away, but I could still see the scorch marks on the driveway. Elise, I'm a civil engineer. I build bridges and roads and buildings. I understand load-bearing walls and stress points and how much pressure a structure can take before it collapses. I turned back to face her. What I don't understand is how my wife of 22 years could bring a criminal into our home and then threaten me when I object to it. I'm not threatening you. Yes, you are. You're telling me that if I don't play along with your divorce terms, something dangerous might happen to me. That's called extortion, Elise. Her face hardened. The mask of civilized discussion slipped, and I saw something underneath that I didn't recognize, something cold and calculating. Fine, she said, if that's how you want to play it. I'm not playing anything. I'm just a man whose wife cheated on him and who wants to get on with his life. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. She stood up and smoothed her skirt. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, things get complicated. More complicated than finding your lover hanging from my closet rod? Much more complicated. She walked to the door, then turned back. Paul, I'm trying to be kind here. Don't make me be something else. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at the place where her hands had been. 22 years of marriage, and I was just now seeing who she really was. My phone rang. Anna, how are you holding up? She asked. I've been better. Elise wants a divorce. Good. You deserve better than her. She also threatened me. There was a long pause. What kind of threat? The kind that suggests her boyfriend isn't just an adulterer. He's something worse. Paul, maybe you should call the police. I did talk to Ray Fisher this morning. He confirmed my suspicions about Victor. So what are you going to do? I looked out the window at the scorch marks on my driveway. I'm going to fight back. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in 22 years of marriage. I hired a private investigator. Detective Fisher had given me the name of someone he trusted, a former Boston cop named Sarah Chen, who specialized in domestic investigations. She had an office above the hardware store on Main Street, the kind of place you could visit without drawing attention. So your wife is involved with Victor Resnick, she said, reviewing the notes I'd given her, and she's threatened you if you don't agree to her divorce terms. That's the short version. There's a long version, 22 years of marriage, that I'm starting to realize was built on lies. Chen was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with short black hair and the kind of direct gaze that suggested she didn't suffer fools gladly. Her office was spartanly furnished, a desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and a coffee maker that looked like it had seen better decades. What do you want me to find? She asked. Everything. How long she's been involved with Resnick, what kind of business they're really in, and what kind of leverage they think they have over me. This could get expensive. I've got money. What I don't have is time. Elise gave me 24 hours to reconsider her terms, and that was yesterday. Chen leaned back in her chair. Mr. Granger, I have to ask, are you looking for evidence for a divorce, or are you planning something else? I'm planning to protect myself. From what? From whatever they're planning to do to me if I don't cooperate? She studied me for a long moment. Okay, I'll take the case, but I want to be clear about something. If I find evidence of criminal activity, I'm obligated to report it. I wouldn't expect anything else. We shook hands and I wrote her a check for her retainer. It was more money than I'd spent on anything except the house and cars, but it felt like the best investment I'd ever made. On my way out, I ran into Tom Bradley coming out of the hardware store below. Tom and I had been friends since high school, the kind of friendship that survives marriages and divorces and all the complications that come with middle age. Paul, heard about your excitement the other night. News travels fast. You okay? Linda's been worried about you. Linda was Tom's wife, a sweet woman who made the best apple pie in 3 counties and had never said a harsh word about anyone. If Linda was worried, it meant the whole town was talking. I'm fine, Tom. Just working through some marital issues. Anything I can do to help? I was about to say no when an idea occurred to me. Tom owned the largest construction company in the county. He employed half the tradesmen in town and knew everyone's business. Actually, there is something. You know anything about Victor Resnick? Tom's expression darkened. That son of a witch owes me $12,000. For what? Renovation work on a warehouse he bought down by the docks. Paid half up front, then disappeared when it came time to pay the balance. That was 3 months ago. What kind of warehouse? Old fish processing plant. Been empty for years. He said he wanted to convert it for storage. Storage for what? That's what I wondered. Place is refrigerated, has loading docks, easy access to the water, perfect for someone who wanted to move things without a lot of questions being asked. We walked to Tom's truck, a battered Ford that had seen more construction sites than a building inspector. Paul, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but there's been talk. What kind of talk? About your wife, about some of the real estate deals she's been handling, cash sales, no inspections, buyers who don't seem to care about market value. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How long has this been going on? 6 months, maybe longer. Look, Paul, I like Elise, but some of these deals, they don't smell right. What do you mean? I mean properties selling for twice their assessed value to buyers who pay cash and never move in. That's money laundering, Paul. Plain and simple. I leaned against his truck, feeling like the ground was shifting under my feet. It wasn't just adultery. Elise was involved in something that could destroy both our lives. Tom, I need a favor. Name it. I need to know everything you can tell me about that warehouse. Who's been coming and going, what kind of vehicles, anything unusual. Paul, if you're thinking about doing something stupid, I'm thinking about protecting myself. There's a difference. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. I'll make some calls. But Paul, be careful. Men like Resnick don't play by the same rules as the rest of us. That afternoon, I drove past the warehouse Tom had mentioned. It was exactly what he'd described. An old fish processing plant on the wrong side of the harbor. The kind of place that had been dying slowly since the fishing industry moved offshore. But it didn't look abandoned. The parking lot had been recently paved, and there were new security lights around the perimeter. A black SUV sat near the loading dock, and I could see movement through the windows of the office area. I parked across the street and watched for an hour. 3 men came and went, all driving expensive cars and wearing the kind of clothes that suggested they weren't in the fish business. One of them was Victor. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions or you'll get answers you don't like. I looked around, but I couldn't see anyone watching me. Still, the message was clear. Someone knew I was investigating and they didn't like it. I drove home to find Elise waiting in my kitchen again. This time she wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize sat at my table, drinking my coffee like he owned the place. Paul, this is Mark Stevens, Elise said. He works with Victor. Mark was younger than Victor, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of build that suggested he spent a lot of time in the gym and wasn't afraid to use it. He looked me up and down like he was sizing me up for a coffin. Mr. Granger, he said. His voice was flat, professional. We need to talk. About what? About your wife's business arrangements. And about your recent interest in things that don't concern you. I sat down across from him. My wife's business is my business. We're married. Not for much longer, Elise said. Until the divorce is final, what affects you affects me. Mark leaned forward. Mr. Granger, your wife has been very valuable to our organization. She's helped us with several important transactions. We'd hate to see that relationship complicated by domestic issues. What kind of transactions? Real estate, import-export, various business ventures, money laundering, you mean? Mark's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Mr. Granger, I'm going to be very clear with you. Your wife wants a simple, quiet divorce. You give her what she's asking for, and everyone walks away happy. You make things complicated, and complications have a way of spreading. Is that a threat? It's a business proposition. I looked at Elise. She was staring at her hands, not meeting my eyes. Elise, is this what you want? Thugs in our kitchen making threats? Paul, just give me the divorce, please. It's better for everyone. Better for who? You? Victor? Your new friends in the import-export business? Mark stood up. Mr. Granger, you have until tomorrow night to make a decision. After that, the offer expires. And then what? Then we explore other options. After they left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking. 22 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Criminals at my kitchen table, my wife too scared or too compromised to look me in the eye. I called Sarah Chen. I need everything you can find, and I need it baked, I told her. What happened? They just escalated. How much time do we have? 24 hours. I'll see what I can do. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my workshop, cleaning my tools and thinking about load-bearing walls and stress points and how much pressure a structure could take before it collapsed. By morning, I had a plan. Sarah Chen called at 6 a.m. with news that changed everything. "Your wife has been laundering money for Viktor Resnick for 8 months," she said without preamble. "Real estate transactions, all cash, all above market value. The buyers are shell companies, probably Russian mob connections." I sat up in my workshop chair, suddenly fully awake. "How much money?" "Conservative estimate, $2 million, maybe more." Jesus Christ. It gets worse. I found evidence that she's been skimming from the transactions, taking a percentage off the top that Resnick doesn't know about. How much? Maybe 200,000. She's got accounts in 3 different banks under her maiden name. I felt something shift inside me, like tumblers falling into place in a lock. "Sarah, what happens to someone who steals from the Russian mob? They don't get to retire to Florida. And what happens to their husbands? Depends on how much the husband knows." I understood now why Elise was so desperate for a quiet divorce. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to disappear with stolen money, and she needed me out of the picture before Viktor discovered what she'd done. "There's more," Sarah said. "I found evidence that Resnick has been planning something for tonight. Text messages, phone records. They're moving a large shipment through the warehouse, and they wanted it done while you were indisposed." "What kind of shipment?" "The kind that doesn't go through customs." I thanked Sarah and hung up, then sat in my workshop staring at my tools. Hammers and saws and drills, all designed to build things. But tools could be used for more than construction. My phone rang. Tom Bradley. "Paul, you need to know something. There's been activity at that warehouse all night. Trucks, boats, a lot of people. Whatever they're doing, it's happening today." "What kind of trucks?" "Refrigerated, the kind used for transporting fish, or other things that need to stay cold." "Tom, I need another favor." "What now?" "I need you to call the Coast Guard. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity at the old fish processing plant." "Paul, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to end this." At noon, Elise showed up at my house with divorce papers. "Sign these," she said, spreading them across my kitchen table, "and this nightmare can be over." I looked at the papers. She was asking for everything: the house, half my retirement and alimony, even my tools. It was financial ruin. "Generous terms," I said. "Paul, please, just sign them." "Or what? Mark comes back with more threats? Or people get hurt?" I looked at my wife of 22 years. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married had been kind, ambitious, maybe a little materialistic, but not cruel. This woman was a stranger. "Elise, how much money did you steal from Viktor?" Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about. $200,000, give or take." She sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "How did you—" "I hired a private investigator. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look." "Paul, you don't understand. Viktor is dangerous. If he finds out—" "He's going to find out anyway. Men like that always do." "Not if I disappear first." "With my money. Our money. I earned it. By laundering money for the Russian mob." She flinched. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. It started small, just a few transactions. Easy money. And then you got greedy. I got scared. Do you know what these people do to each other? I needed insurance. Something to run with if things went bad. So you decided to steal from them and frame me for it. I never meant for you to get hurt, but you were willing to let it happen." She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I stood up and walked to the window. Viktor's BMW had been replaced by a black Mercedes, parked across the street where the driver could watch my house. "They're watching us," I said. "They've been watching for days." "Waiting for what?" "For you to sign the papers, for me to transfer the money, for everything to be cleaned up before tonight's shipment arrives." I turned back to face her. "What happens tonight?" "I don't know. Viktor doesn't tell me everything. But you know it's big. Big enough that he can't afford complications. Like a husband who won't cooperate." She nodded. I picked up the divorce papers and read through them again. Financial ruin, but maybe that was the point. If I was bankrupt and desperate, who would believe me if I tried to expose Viktor's operation? "I'll sign them," I said. Relief flooded her face. "Thank you, Paul. I know this is hard, but on one condition." The relief vanished. "What condition?" "I want to meet with Viktor, tonight, face to face." "Paul, no. That's not a good idea." "It's not a request, Elise. It's the condition. You want these papers signed, you arrange the meeting. He won't agree to it. Then you better be very persuasive. She made the call from my kitchen, speaking in hushed tones while I watched the Mercedes across the street. After 10 minutes, she hung up. Tonight, 8 o'clock, the warehouse. Just Victor and me? Victor, Mark, and 2 other men. And you? He wants me there. To make sure I cooperate? To make sure you don't do anything stupid. I signed the divorce papers with a flourish. There, happy? She gathered the papers like they were made of gold. Paul, whatever you're thinking, don't. These people will end you. Maybe, but they'll have to catch me first. After she left, I went to my workshop and selected my tools carefully. Not tools. I wasn't a butcher. But tools had multiple uses, and a man who knew how to use them properly could accomplish amazing things. At 7:30, I drove to the warehouse. The parking lot was full of expensive cars and refrigerated trucks. The kind of operation that moves serious money and serious merchandise. Victor was waiting for me in what had once been the plant manager's office. He looked different than he had hanging from my closet rod. More dangerous, more in control. Mark stood behind him, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize. Mr. Granger, Victor said, thank you for coming. Thank you for not hanging upside down this time. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You have quite a sense of humor for a man in your position. What position is that? Expendable. Elise sat in a chair by the window, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else in the world. Victor, I signed the divorce papers. We're done here. I'm afraid it's not that simple. You see, your wife has been creative with our business arrangements. Creative how? She's been taking liberties with our money. I looked at Elise. She was staring at the floor. How much? I asked. Enough that it can't be overlooked. So what do you want from me? I want you to help me recover it. And if I refuse, Victor nodded to Mark, who stepped forward with something in his hand. A tool. Then your wife becomes a widow before she becomes a divorcee. Outside, I could hear the sound of trucks being loaded. Whatever Victor was moving tonight, it was big enough that he couldn't afford loose ends. Victor, I'm just a civil engineer. I build bridges. I don't know anything about your business. But you know about stress points, don't you? About how much pressure a structure can take before it fails? I nodded. People are the same way. Everyone has a breaking point. He was right. Everyone did have a breaking point, including him. What do you want me to do? I asked. Your wife has hidden our money. You're going to help us find it. And then we'll discuss your future. I looked around the office. 4 armed men, 1 scared woman, and me. Not good odds. But I hadn't come here to fight. I'd come here to end this. Before we start, I said, I have a question. What? Do you hear that? Victor cocked his head, listening. In the distance, the sound of sirens was growing louder. What did you do? Mark demanded. I made a phone call. Anonymous tip to the Coast Guard about suspicious activity at an old fish processing plant. Victor's face went white. You son of a witch! The trucks outside, the boats at the dock, whatever you're moving tonight, it's over. Mark raised his tool, but Victor stopped him with a gesture. How long do we have? They were already on their way when I got here, maybe 5 minutes. Victor cursed in Russian and started barking orders. The 2 men I didn't recognize ran for the door. Mark hesitated, torn between following orders and confronting me. Go, Victor told him. Clean up what you can. Mark ran. Victor turned back to me. You have made a very expensive mistake, Mr. Granger. Have I? This operation was worth millions of dollars. My associates will not be pleased. Your associates have bigger problems than one blown operation. What do you mean? I smiled. I mean the Coast Guard isn't the only agency that received an anonymous tip tonight. The sirens were getting louder. Through the window, I could see men running, trucks being abandoned, boats pulling away from the dock in panic. FBI, DEA, state police, they all got very detailed information about your money laundering operation. Names, dates, bank accounts, real estate transactions, everything. Victor's hand moved toward his jacket, but I was already moving. 22 years of construction work had given me strong hands and quick reflexes. I grabbed a wrench from the tool belt I'd worn and brought it down on his wrist before he could draw his tool. He screamed and fell back, clutching his broken wrist. Elise, I said without taking my eyes off Victor. Car keys, now. She threw me her keys. I caught them one-handed. The money you stole, I told her. Where is it? Safe deposit boxes, 3 different banks. Give it back. Paul, all of it, tonight. Or I tell the FBI exactly how deep you're in this. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Victor was trying to reach his tool with his good hand. I kicked it away. Victor, you're going to prison. Probably for a very long time. You think this is over? He gasped. You think my people will just forget about this? Your people are going to be too busy saving themselves to worry about revenge. The sirens were right outside now. Flashing lights filled the windows. Besides, I added, I have insurance. What insurance? Everything. Financial records, photographs, recordings of conversations, all in a safe place with instructions to release everything if anything happens to me. It was a bluff, but Victor didn't know that. The office door burst open and federal agents poured in. Nobody move! Hands where we can see them! I raised my hands. Victor clutched his broken wrist and glared at me with pure hatred. Paul Granger, one of the agents said. Are you the one who called this in? Yes, sir. We're going to need you to come with us. We have a lot of questions. I understand. They cuffed Victor and read him his rights. Elise was crying, but she wasn't under arrest yet. That would come later, after they'd gone through all the evidence Sarah Chen had gathered. As they led Victor away, he looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, he said. Yes, I replied. It is. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Elise got nothing. All our assets were frozen pending the federal investigation, and her lawyer advised her to be grateful she wasn't facing criminal charges. Victor got 25 years in federal prison. Mark got 15. The two men whose names I never learned got various sentences for their roles in the operation. Elise testified against all of them in exchange for immunity. She returned the stolen money and agreed to cooperate fully with the ongoing investigation into Russian money laundering operations in New England. I got my life back. The house is quiet now. Sometimes I miss the sound of another person moving around, but I don't miss the lies or the secrets or the feeling that I was living with a stranger. Tom Bradley and I are working on a new project, converting the old fish processing plant into a community center. The federal government seized it as part of Victor's assets, and the town bought it at auction for $1. It seems fitting somehow, taking something that was used for crime and turning it into something that benefits everyone. Sarah Chen and I have become friends. She stops by sometimes for coffee and updates on cases she's working on. She says I have good instincts for investigation work, but I think I'll stick to engineering. I've had enough excitement for one lifetime. Detective Fisher retired last month and moved to Florida. Before he left, he told me something I'll never forget. Paul, most people never get the chance to rebuild their lives from scratch. Don't waste it. I don't intend to. Last week, I got a letter from Victor in prison. Just one line. I have a long memory. I threw it away without finishing it. Some bridges are meant to be burned.